Yo, I've been wanting to do some lo-fi recently, but let's say I don't want to use a pre-made melodic sample and instead I want to come up with my own chord progression. Well, a lot of the times lo-fi is basically just for millennials, but unfortunately, pal, I'm not that guy. At least not yet. I'm not good enough of a piano player to come up with my own original jazzy chord progressions. So what am I gonna do now? Am I gonna just quit? Do I just quit? No, while the learning process is happening, I steal chord progressions from tracks I really like and then rearrange them to make it my own. How do I go about doing this? Well, I have a bunch of different ways and tools that I use to break down tracks, but today I'll be focusing on Melodyne, which can do some freaky stuff. If you told me Melodyne could land a person on the moon, I probably believe you. Therefore, I haven't learned all of Melodyne's tools. It's a very overwhelming plugin, but I'm not sponsored by Melodyne, so I'm gonna stop gloating about them. And also, if you use FL, Newtone, it's a native FL plugin, can do pretty much the same stuff Melodyne can. In this video though, I'll be using two of Melodyne's tools, two simple tools, which are Chord and Key Analysis. I'll showcase ways of using them by breaking down 3 different tracks. First, I'm breaking down Don't Be Shy by Sensi, I think that's the name. By the way, I love this artist. I've been listening to them ever since I think 2015 when Anime Vibe reposted All Yours. The whole breakdown of this track will be available in the future, probably in a pack that I'm gonna try to sell, or I'm just gonna upload them weekly, bi-weekly in my Patreon like I promised I would. I also intend on doing a full video in the future explaining all the different tools and resources I use to break down and study tracks. Other than the drums, there isn't a lot here. Simple and nice this one is. White noise and the chords are pretty much the most important parts. Let's analyze the key and the chord progression by transferring the song into Melodyne. I am going to use the section right here because I forgot to do the bass. So I already have this already really nicely done. So I just need to do the bass, which it doesn't play here, but plays here. I just go transfer and play. Okay, it's right here. All the notes. Now, for it to be all spread out like this, the notes, you have to go to algorithm and polyphonic sustain or polyphonic decay. Then you need to click options, show keys, and show chords. Here it's giving me G minor. I put D minor or G minor here because auto key gives me F major, which is the counterpart of D minor because they share the same notes. But Melodyne says it's G minor. I'm gonna go with Melodyne on this one. Not that it really matters because we're talking about jazzy chord progression, so you will step out of the boundaries of the scale quite often. And D minor and G minor are right next to each other on the circle of fifths, which means their scales are incredibly similar. Melodyne is not 100% accurate, but the way it analyzes chords, it can give cool voicings for the chords. So I copied the chords the way they were in Melodyne, and the chords that I didn't like how they translated, I rearranged it to my liking. Let's go back to the bass real quick. I can click here and see G, C, and it pretty much follows the kick pattern. And I can click the sound. I can click the note to see what it sounds like to know if I'm picking the right sound. Now, what I want to see here is if the bass plays twice, like the kick plays twice. I don't think it plays twice. I think it's kick then kick with the bass. And now I'm getting the hang of how the bass line goes. And it pretty much follows the chords right here. And then you have the repetition of the second note twice. So it's gonna be... Another example that worked really well is this track I found at the end of a Chapelle video. I know it's super random, but I fell in love with the track. I couldn't find the original track, so I decided to download the video and try to analyze the chords because I wanted to learn how to play them. Again, I'm not trying to imitate one-to-one. I'm just trying to find a new chord progression that I really like and have some ideas on how to voice it in an interesting way. Here Melodyne gives me the chord progression like this. But I played it like this. And you can see it doesn't sound completely the same. I can play them on top of each other because they're very similar, but now that I have this beautiful chord progression and voicing, I can change keys and rhythm and even genres if I truly want to make this unique. Before I end the video, I need to show some negatives about using Melodyne to analyze tracks, but also some of the workarounds that I do to overcome those negatives. Tracks from Vaporwave, for example, are rich in melody, but the sounds are usually muddy together, so Melodyne has difficulties breaking it down. This track right here is in Vaporwave, but I'm having the hardest time breaking it down, even though I really want to learn how to play this melody. This intro right here is pretty simple because it's just drums and the chords, so I can throw it on Melodyne and get it pretty easy. Now this top melody I had a really hard time getting. But I was still able to do it with Melodyne, but what I did was, before sending it to Melodyne, I isolate the sound with an EQ. Then I transferred that into Melodyne. Now that made it work because if I didn't do the EQ and the filter, it would be too difficult to differentiate. Even with that, it's still quite a tall task to ask Melodyne to differentiate all these sounds when you have drums and bass. The biggest struggle that I have is this groovy piano that plays in the background, and even trying to filter and transfer to Melodyne this section that doesn't have a lot other than the melody, I still quite can't figure it out how to play this melody perfectly. But like I said, with all of that, getting the chords, the top melody, and the bass, I still can't quite get the groovy piano that is in the background. And this is a reminder that there is not a perfect tool that will break down songs for you. It's not going to be Newton, it's not going to be Melodyne. I saw a bunch of different other plugins that promise to break down songs, but the more complex and more busy sounding where you're trying to break down is, the harder it's going to be for it to get clean breakdowns of chord analysis. So ultimately, your best bet is to improve your ear over time, so you can at least at the end of the day develop a partial perfect pitch. But that's pretty much it. Subscribe to keep me motivated to make content, and please check out the Patreon if you want my breakdowns early, plus the full track breakdowns from the ones you saw in this video. Peace, 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 peace.